Okay, so I need to tell you about a company that most people outside the tech world have never even heard of, and yet, in a single trading day, it became the single most valuable publicly listed company in all of China. I'm talking about CXMT, and honestly, the story of what just happened here is a little bit wild. If you like breakdowns like this, where I actually explain why something matters instead of just throwing buzzwords at you, do me a quick favor and tap subscribe right now so you don't miss the next one. Stick around because the numbers I'm about to show you are borderline ridiculous, and by the end you'll get why I think this company is one of the most interesting stories in tech at the moment. CXMT stands for ChangXin Memory Technologies, and they're based in Hefei, China. They were founded back in 2016 with heavy state backing, and their whole job is making DRAM. That's the memory that goes into your phone, your laptop, servers, cars, basically anything with a brain inside. And for years, CXMT was the quiet underdog nobody took too seriously. Well, that's very much over now. Let me set the scene. On July 27, 2026, CXMT listed on Shanghai's Star Market under the ticket 688825. They priced their shares at 866 yuan each and raised about 57.92 billion yuan, which works out to roughly $8.6 billion. That right there made it the biggest IPO in Asia this year and the largest semiconductor listing in the entire history of the Star Market. But that's not even the crazy part. On the very first day of trading, the stock absolutely exploded. It opened way up, and at one point it was up more than 500%. It closed around 466% above the offer price, giving CXMT a market cap of roughly 3.3 trillion yuan, which is nearly $489 billion. That number launched them past Industrial and Commercial Bank of China to become the most valuable company listed on China's mainland exchanges. Think about that for a second. A memory chip maker beat the banks, and it was also the second largest IPO on any mainland Chinese exchange since the Agricultural Bank of China went public back in 2010. And the debut was so explosive that it genuinely rattled Micron, the big American memory player, and it even triggered a bipartisan investigation over in Washington. When your stock market debut makes Congress nervous, you know you've officially arrived, and I'll be honest, I love a good underdog moment, and this was a proper one. Now, markets don't hand out that kind of valuation for nothing, so let's actually look at the business behind it. In the first quarter of 2026, CXMT pulled in about 50.8 billion yuan in revenue, which is roughly $7.5 billion. That was up over 700% year over year. Net profit jumped more than 1,200%, and they're forecasting first half revenue somewhere between 110 and 120 billion yuan. Those aren't growth numbers, those are rocket numbers. The reason is pretty simple. The world is in the middle of a huge memory shortage driven by the AI boom. Data centers are gobbling up every chip they can find, prices have gone through the roof, and the big three, Samsung, SK, Hynix, and Micron, simply can't keep up with the demand. CXMT walked in right into that gap at exactly the right moment, and let me break the actual products they have because this is where it gets fun. DDR5 is the current standard for modern memory, and that's the stuff in the newest gaming PCs, workstation, and servers, and CXMT's DDR5 is genuinely competitive, which even a year ago a lot of people doubted. Their chips hit speeds of up to 8,000 megabits per second, and they come in 16 gigabit and 24 gigabit die densities, and they use about 20% less power than DDR4. They've also got on-die error correction baked in, which basically means better stability and cleaner data under load. What impressed me the most is the sheer range of form factors. They are not just making one flavor. They've got UDIMM for desktops, SODIMM for laptops, and RDIMM DIMM and MRDIMM for servers, and even CUDIMM and CSODIMM for the high-end overclocking crowd. This is a full lineup and not a science experiment, and their newest generation of DRAM cells is around 20% smaller than the previous one, which means more chips per wafer and lower costs down the line. And here's the real kicker. Every single one of these three biggest motherboard makers, ASUS, MSI, and GIGABYTE, now validate memory built on CXMT's chips. Brands like Lexar are dropping CXMT dies into kits rated up to 7600 megatransfers. And this isn't theory anymore. This is a shipping product. And in a market where a 32GB DDR5 kit that cost around $100 a year ago now runs $400, a fresh supplier flooding the market is exactly what gamers and PC builders have been praying for. Okay, now it's time to rewind a little because CXMT did not start with DDR5. They cut their teeth on the DDR4. That's the older generation that powered a massive chunk of the world's PCs and servers for the better part of a decade. CXMT spent its early years cranking out DDR4 for the domestic Chinese market, and honestly, that's how they learned to walk before they could run. Their DDR4 lineup covers chips and modules for servers, desktops, laptops, set-top boxes, and all kinds of everyday devices. It's reliable, it's low power, and it's very cheap, which is exactly what a lot of industrial and consumer gear still needs. But here's the plot twist. CXMT is reportedly winding down DDR4 production for PCs and servers around the middle of this year, apparently at Beijing's direction, so that they can pour everything into the cutting edge instead. Funny enough, this aggressive DDR4 pricing already pushed Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron to end their own DDR3 and DDR4 production. So even the memory they're walking away from, they reshaped on the way out. That's influence. Okay, this is my favorite part because this is where CXMT is quietly dominating and most people aren't even watching. LPDDR is the low-power version of DDR, the memory that goes into phones, tablets, and thin laptops, and CXMT's LPDDR5 and LPDDR5X business is enormous. Get this, those two products made up roughly 66% of the core business revenue in 2025. That is the beating heart of this whole company. Their LPDDR5X comes in 12 gigabit and 16 gigabit die capacities and hits top speeds of 10,667 megabits per second. That's a 66% improvement over regular LPDDR5, and it sips about 30% less power. They kicked off mass production of the 8533 and 9600 megabit versions back in May of 2025, and their flagship 10,667 version followed into sampling and production after that. These chips enable phones and laptop configs running from 12 gigabytes all the way up to 32. And who's actually buying this stuff? Well, it's Xiaomi, it's Oppo, it's Vivo, and Honor. Those are some of the biggest phone brands on the entire planet. And when that's your customer list for mobile memory, you are not a side character anymore. What genuinely impresses me is the pace of it all. CXMT went from mass-producing LPDDR5 in 2023 to sampling high-end LPDDR5X in 2025. That's 2 generations in under 3 years, and for a company plenty of people wrote off as years behind, this is a seriously fast sprint. Now, before LPDDR5X, there was LPDDR4X, and CXMT still makes it. This is the 4th generation of low-power memory, and it uses a special low-voltage interface to keep power draw down. It's built for smartphones, tablets, and smartwatches, and wearables in general, the kind of devices where battery life is basically everything, and it might not have the flashy headline speeds of the 5X stuff, but LPDDR4X is reliable, high-volume, workhorse, and it's the memory that quietly powers a huge number of mid-ranges and budget devices, plus a newer use case like higher resolution displays, VR headsets, and 5G gadgets. And it's another product where CXMT can deliver domestic supply without leaning on foreign chip makers, which for China right now is a really big deal strategically. Now, here's my honest take. CXMT is not the biggest memory maker in the world, at least not yet. They hold somewhere around 8 to 10% of the global DRAM market, while Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron still sit comfortably ahead. On the absolute bleeding edge, especially high bandwidth memory for AI, they're still a few years behind, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise because that wouldn't be fair to you. But just look at the trajectory. A record-smashing IPO, the most valuable company in China, triple-digit revenue growth, a full DDR5 lineup validated by every major motherboard maker, a mobile memory business the biggest phone brands lean on, and enough production muscle to potentially match Micron's capacity this very year. They turned a brutal global memory shortage into their own launchpad, and I think that's genuinely brilliant timing paired with real execution. You don't fake numbers like these, and for regular people like you and me, more competition in memory means one thing, and it's a good thing. It means prices should eventually come back down to earth. It means more supply on the shelves, and it means the cozy little three-way club that ran this market for years suddenly has a fourth member who is very hungry and is moving fast, and I'm here for it. And if you found this breakdown useful, go ahead and smash that like button because it honestly helps the channel more than you'd think, and hit subscribe if you want more deep dives like this one, because the memory wars are only just getting started, and I'll be right here to cover every single twist. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.